Hello everyone, this is Gary from Fantastic Fundas, and in this lecture I am going to talk to you about the directive principles of state policy, and we will begin our lecture with some introduction that about the nature of the DPSPs and in general about the what are DPSPs and general introduction, right? What is the significance of the DPSPs on those lines, right? So the DPSPs, they are mentioned in the part 4 of our constitution, and they are the set of guidelines, and they are the set of principles. Okay, they are the guidelines essentially. They are guidelines, and in fact they are non-binding guidelines. What do you mean by this non-binding? That you cannot go to court if state government does not fulfill them. These are guidelines for government. So if government does not fulfill these guidelines, you cannot go to court. That they are non-binding. Okay. Now, what is the source of these directive principles of state policy? They are directive principles. You have to direct the government in this particular manner based on these principles. Okay, so these are directive principles of state policy. So it is based on three sources. Number one is the Irish Constitution, that is the primary source. Then number two, it is also based to a great extent on the instructions for the state given under the 1935 Government of India Act. And number three is the our freedom struggle. So a lot of our directive principles have been inspired from this also, freedom struggle. So these are the main sources of the DPSPs. Right. So these DPSPs, what are they doing exactly? They give us the concept of welfare state in India. They make a state in government state in India a welfare state than laissez-faire. Laissez-faire is like when you have absolute freedom to do whatever you want to do. That is laissez-faire. जो भी आपका दिल करे आप वो करना चाहें वो laissez-faire है. यहाँ पर it's a concept of welfare state. There would be restrictions for the benefit of all. That is how it goes. Okay, now directive principles, they are like the day to day. Okay, they are day to day administrative tasks of the country, right? And the purpose of them is just one thing, and that is the development and everything that is written in the preamble of the constitution. Whenever you are stuck in constitution or your polity answer what to write, always write the preamble, and trust me, you will get some marks than no marks at all. Okay, so that is how it goes. Okay, now further, these directive principles, they basically, they focus on their aim is to bring up a egalitarian society. That is what they are focusing on, right? And not just that, right? An inclusive society, this is what they focus on, right? A classless society. So we are looking for inclusive classless society because with the help of the directive principle. That is why they are of high importance to us. Okay, and what are these? I told you that directive principles are the guidelines, the non-binding guidelines. Why they are non-binding, I'll talk about that, but let me first talk to you about the guidelines of the meaning of the guideline over there. See, they are, for whom they are the guideline. They are the guideline for the state. What kind of guideline? That they have to act in a particular manner, right? And they must bear these principles, the directive principles of state policy. So that these are principles which a state must keep in mind. So they are the principles for state to keep in mind while taking any decision or any making any law or formulating any policy, and or initiating any legislation, right? So all the directive principles in India, if I talk about them, see, they are like very unique in India. For example, they are a mixture of socialism or Gandhism. You can easily recognize, for example, Panchayati Raj or backward class. All these are Gandhian concepts related to that, right? And freedom of India struggle. So it is such a combination of every idea over of the past. Okay, freedom of Indian struggle. Now, going beyond this, now after this, I would like to talk to you about the nature of the directive principles of the state policy. What do you mean by nature? That they are not enforceable. They are just the guidelines. They are not enforceable. What do you mean by this? As I said earlier, you cannot go to against the government of India or the state for not enforcing these properly. Okay, so they are to be implemented by the state by incorporating some policies or laws, but which are not, these are not justiciable that this was not fulfilled. Okay, But once the law is made, for example, there was earlier education, right? And then earlier it was a directive principle of state policy, now it is FR also. But then if there was a law called right to education, and even if there was no FR and the law is there, then this becomes enforceable under under normal law, not the writs law. Okay, writ, I've already talked to you in article 32 earlier in one of the lectures. Okay, so in other words, these directive principles are like the positive obligations on the state, which must state keep in mind to fulfill its while fulfilling its any of its objective, right? And these, because see, directive principle fulfill everything whatever is said in preamble. Socio-economic, political justice is given by the preamble. So whenever you are stuck in polity, as I said earlier, you must write things out of preamble then and there. Okay, and why are they not enforceable? That is a question very few people will answer you. I'll tell you that what happened when India got freedom. Okay, India is free, India got freedom. Now when India got freedom, British had already sucked our money, economy, finance, resources, human resource, every kind of industry was in the hands of the British. So India was economically in a very, very ruined condition at the time of the independence. So the constitution maker said that because of various limitations, what kind of limitation? The financial limitations primarily, and because of other administration like administrative, and then unity of the country, and then the level of the societal advancement that the country has reached. For example, a lot of people still oppose uniform civil code. I'll talk about that in detail when I come talk to you today about the uniform civil code, right? So and also so many other things. For example, they thought that the country is not yet ready. Country is not morally or or any kind of whatever reasons, right? So because of all these reasons, country is not ready for certain things, and state government cannot afford because of these reasons to put into enforce some things. Those some things because which state cannot enforce at that time were called as DPSP, and which could be enforced by the state, they were called as fundamental rights. But then these DPSPs were made with the only objective of turning them into fundamental rights one day. That is how the DPSP is made. That is the nature, that is why they are non-justiciable, because the presumption of the constituent assembly, the assembly that made the constitution, that the DPSPs cannot be really implemented, right, properly. At that juncture, right to education became your DPSP. This became your FR much later. Initially it was a DPSP. So that is a live example of how things are happening. Okay, so that was like pretty much the nature of this. And these DPSPs, if I talk about them, they, as I told you, that they have all the preambular values. Preambular values is a good word to use, you can use in your exam. Preambular values, it just simply means the values written in our preamble of the constitution, right? And then DPSCs, and then there's a lot of talk about economic justice, and that is coming through DPSP. We'll talk about all those, how things are coming out of DPSP, okay, and how they are basically the guidelines of the public policy which must be kept in mind. Okay, so preambular values. Okay, I'll tell you how to write a good sentence, right? See, over here when writing polity answer, see, you write the preambular values are fulfilled. You see, this is how you can write your answer. It should be very concise and full of many important words. The preambular values are let's say, okay, let me just write it again. Preambular values are aimed at through fulfillment of fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. So such things you can always write, right? Even though you can write this way: even though DPSP are non-justiciable, yet their contribution is no less important than fundamental rights. Right, so you can write such things over there in your exam, okay, citing the importance and the nature, and you should write more information in less and less number of words. Okay, so that is how the nature of this thing is the directive principles of the state policy, right? Now, the next topic that I would like to talk to you over here is the difference between fundamental rights and directive principle of state policy. Let me just draw a column over here and over here, and okay, so this over here are the fundamental rights, right? Okay, let me just put it here. These are the fundamental rights, and these are the DPSPs, and over here is the difference between them, right? So we'll see what is the difference between them. First of all, okay, first difference is regarding the enforceability. Let me tell you about the differences first of all, okay. And one difference is in the enforceability. Second is on the obligation. What kind of obligation do they put in, right? Number three is, is it static or dynamic? So question, is it static or dynamic? That is the question over here. And then number four is what kind of democracy it promotes. Democracy, what kind of democracy it particularly promotes. Then enforcement, there's a difference between their enforcement. Number six is who's the focus. Okay, focus is on whom? Is it the individual or a group, right? Number seven, what are they? I mean, they are the rights or what. And number eight over here is that who gave them, who gives them, who gives them. I'll answer all these questions. So fundamental rights are enforceable. Yes, DPSPs are not enforceable. Then obligation. Fundamental rights are the negative obligations in general, while the DPSPs are the positive obligation on the state government to do something. Negative obligation are on the obligation on the state not to do something. Okay, and then what is static? The fundamental rights more or less they are static. Though there can be certain change, almost static. But DPSPs are highly dynamic. Okay, and what kind of democracy? Over here, the fundamental rights are promoting the political democracy, and this over here, this promotes your social and economic democracy, right? And enforcement, right? They are already enforced. They are into force. You can go to court, but this is not so over here. What is their focus? Their focus is individual is their focus, and over here the focus is group is the focus when it comes to DPSP. So what are they? They are essentially the rights. And what are these? They are the directions or the or let's say facilities for the government, directions for government. And who gives them? See, it is given by the state to people. Okay, state to people, right? And this over here is given by these are defined by constitution to state. That is how things are moving, right? That is how the duties have been clearly laid down, right? But then there's also a very strong relationship between the fundamental rights and DPSPs. Okay, and what is that relation? We'll talk about it. Okay, this is a little bit lengthy topic over here. This one, relation between FR and directive principles of state policy. Okay, directive principles of state policy, right? So we'll begin with it. What happens that okay. Now there is something called Article 37, right? Article 37 of the Constitution. If you open your Bare Act, it clearly lays down that the provisions of the Part 4 shall not be enforceable by court. Okay, but the principles laid down, they are nevertheless fundamental in the governance of the country, and it shall be the duty of the state to apply these principles in making laws. This is clearly written in our Article number 37. Okay, it's saying that they are not enforceable in court of law, but it's constitution, and it's nevertheless they are fundamental. Okay, therefore it is a duty of the government to include the directive principles, right? So because of Article 37, state is duty bound, though you cannot go to court if state breaches this duty, but the state is duty bound to put directive principle of the state policies into all the policies and the laws of the government to take care of such a thing. That is the law. Okay, policies and law. Okay, this has to be taken care of, right? And moreover, like but then what happened once, that there was Supreme Court actually once said that they were examining the constitutionality of the laws which gave effect to one or more directive principles, right? So there was a case in which Supreme Court was talking about directive principle of state policy. This is one of the earliest case of the Supreme Court of India. It is known as the State of Madras versus Champakam Durai Rajan. Okay, for whom you did not understand this, Champakam Durai Rajan. Durai Rajan, okay, and this was in 1950 only, this case. And in this case it was held that the directive principles cannot be cannot write fundamental rights. So fundamental rights have a bigger status than the directive principles of the state policy, okay. In fact, the directive principles must conform to, right, they must have these principles must conform to the fundamental rights, okay, conform to, or they are they cannot be in breach of fundamental right. That was the question when we talk about the relationship between directive principles and fundamental rights, okay. So the court gave a very narrow interpretation to this, right, and that is why after this, what government of India does, it makes a reference to the Supreme Court of India through the president. These reference cases are written as just the okay, so there is no opposing party in these, so just the re is written, and this case was known as the Re Kerala Education Bill 1956, right. And then Supreme Court is in this case said that though the directive principle of state policy, they cannot override the fundamental right, they are smaller, less than fundamental rights, okay, but nevertheless the courts courts cannot completely ignore the directive principle of state policy. They cannot be completely ignored. इनको आप ऐसे छोड़कर इग्नोर मार कर नहीं चल सकते हैं आप, ठीक है. So they in fact the court said, Supreme Court in this case said that there should be harmonization as far as possible, and that the directive principle and fundamental rights, they shall be harmoniously constructed. Usse kya hoga? Basically, you are when there is harmonization, so there is FR also implemented and DPSP also properly implemented, right? So under this theory of harmonious construction, what is happening that the court is holding that there is no inherent conflict between FR and DPSP. This is like again this Kerala Education Bill only, okay. And in fact, the court also said that the fundamental right and DPSP, directive principle of state policy, they complement each other, they supplement each other, right. And what is their aim? Aim is the same, right. Aim is to give the justice, and what kind of justice? Social, economic and political justice, okay. That is what they are trying to give, and in this background, right. So in this background, courts have many a times they have liberally interpreted the constitution, okay. So because of these things, like court a liberal interpretation of the what are these called, the directive principle of state policies, okay. So and that was because and that all was happening over here because they wanted to harmonize the social objectives which the directive principles are laid down. So basically the liberalization that this is coming through the process of harmonization only, harmonization. Okay, and these the what are these called, there's a balance actually, okay, between, let's say, the part number 3 and the part number 4 of the constitution. A balance has been drawn between these two, okay, and this is also the mandate of the constitution, right, and that not only the legislature and executive but also to the judiciary, right. Therefore, the fundamental rights, they have to be interpreted with respect to DPSPs, okay, and DPSPs जो होते हैं, they can be regarded as the reasonable restrictions on fundamental rights. The directive principle of state policy are like the reasonable restrictions on fundamental right. I've already talked to you about article number 31A and 31B, 31C, okay. Please go through that lecture, and in that lecture I have talked about the supremacy of fundamental right and DPSP. That I will not be covering here. I have done almost in quite a detail over there, right, where the final position today is that though even if the article, any provision of the law that is made in pursuance of the article number 39B and C, and even if it violates article number 14 and 19, that would not be void, that will be perfectly valid law, right. Now, but see, one thing is very clear, right, that if only one interpretation is possible of both the things, right, then obviously the fundamental rights would be given preference if there is only one interpretation possible, okay, and then giving effect to one or more DPs, and then there is interlinking, okay, and then when there is a dispute, the FRs obviously will have overpowering over the DPSPs, right. Now because there is no choice in that matter actually, because DPSPs are not exactly justifiable, that is the reason, right. Now, after this, there were a lot of cases. For example, there was Privy Purses case or Privy Purses case. I am not going to detail of this case, but just this much. And then there was also bank nationalization case. I will talk to you this also. Okay. So all these it was held that the laws were held unconstitutional void, which violated article number 14, 19 and 31, right? And because of this Privy Purse bank nationalization case, there was 24th Fifth Amendment, and article 31C was there. This is the old story, right? I've already talked about to you about this story over here, right? And then there was finally it was held later on that the article number 14 and 19 can be ignored when it comes to article number 39 and 39b and 39c's enforcement, right? So on this basis, Supreme Court has upheld right, that the welfare of the people has also been taken care of, and also a balance has been met out between the fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policy. Now, if anyone is having confusion between the interlinking of fundamental right and DPSP of state right, I would suggest you please go to that lecture, right? That is the lecture on right to property, okay, where I have talked about 31A, B and C. You will find a very good discussion on the lecture on the relation between fundamental right and DPSPs in further more detail, okay? Although this much of detail is enough for you for your general studies angle, right? For general studies paper, right? Okay, so this was how it is going on, right? So the 42nd amendment basically, yeah, I've talked about those amendments also at that place only. There's no point repeating it here because already we are short on time anyway, right? So therefore the positive position is that the ultimately I've concluded, right, the 39B and C can prevail over 14 and 19. That is the only thing that you should be knowing, right? So after this, I will like to talk to you about all the directive principles in our constitution. Okay, one by one we'll pick up all, and I'll try to help you to memorize all these. Okay, so by the time you will end this lecture, you will know all these directive principles right from article number 36 to article number 51. Okay, so then we will start that over there. So the first DPSP over here, the first article is article 36, which is nothing. It just says that the meaning of the state over here is same as in the part 3 of the constitution, which we have already talked earlier, right? Part 3 of the constitution, right? And then there is article number 37, right? Article 37 is about the principle, application of the principle. I've already talked to you in this detail, right? Article number 38, right? 38 is like you'll have to remember 38. Rest of the articles I'll try to make them easy for you. 38 is about the the state shall try to have a social order overall. Okay, so the social order, right, where it shall strive for the welfare of the people, okay, and it gives to justice to the people, okay. This directly talks about a preambular value over here, right. It's a social, economic, political justice, right? Directly the preambular value of justice has been mentioned in complete words, okay, over here, right? And then state should also tries to minimize the inequalities in the people. This is a very generalized directive principle of state policy. After that, they're pretty easy for you, right? Right from article 39 to 51, it is pretty simple if you can remember this far somehow, okay. I'll make it very easy for you. Article 39 has 6 clauses, okay. I call them a line of control पे प्राइमरी हेल्थ सेंटर है, प्राइमरी हेल्थ center, okay. So this is a clause A, and then this is clause this is B, right, and right. So also then okay, I'll just name it while I talk to you, okay. So this is the same as the livelihood, right? Live and livelihood. And livelihood, it says that there shall be equal opportunity, right? That the men and women equally, they should have right to adequate means of livelihood. There should be equal livelihood for everybody, right? And then second, the B part over here, this is 39A, now 39B, which is very important because 39B and C have exemption from article 14 and 19. as I said earlier also. So Article 39B over here, this control over here, the ownership and the control of the material resources. Okay, this is control of the material resources. This above is just a formula to remember it. So line of control, we all know that there is a border line of control and primary health center. Line of control has a primary health center. This is the formula. You can imagine the border of India. Okay, right, this over here is a border of India, right. This is the line of control with Pakistan. Okay, you can imagine a primary health center lying here. So line of control has a primary health center. That means that the line is the livelihood health, right. Line of control, LOC. This is, so C is for control, and that is control, ownership and control of the material resources, the right, so that there is no right. So I mean, there is no concentration of wealth. Okay, so that is why we're having this. Okay, so first is the control of the ownership, and then from this only come part C, because part B and C so close to each other. One is that the ownership and control of the material resources, they have to be distributed for the common good of the people. Okay, the resources should be so distributed, हमारे resources की distribution ऐसी होनी चाहिए कि सबका भला हो जाए, सबको common good, everyone enjoys them, right. And C also represent the concentration. There should not be concentration of wealth, which is happening these days. So this is clause C over here, concentration of wealth, right. Because B and C are so closely related, I have not differentiated between them. So line of control, we are done with the clauses A, B, C, right. And then comes the clause number D, E, F, right. And then it says about primary. The primary is for P is for pay. There shall be equal pay for men and women. And then health is clearly health only, right. Health and the strength of the workers, men, women, teenage of the children are not abused, all those things, right, are being covered over here, right. You can use this directive principle of state policy once you remember them in your essay, your GS, other answers, everywhere this can be used. Okay, so this over here is not, there should not be abuse and there should be good health, right. Such things are there, right. And then that children do not enter into the avocations which are unsuited to their age. That is why we're also having this prohibition of children in hazardous employment activities act, which also got recently amended easily, right. That is covered on our blog fantasticfundas.com. I have done an article also there, and there's also a video I've already made on this part. Okay, and then finally, center, this is for children, right. The children have been specially focused in our directive principle. The children should be given facilities, to grow with, they should grow with dignity, they should have a good childhood, and their youth should be protected against exploitation. They should not be moral and for material abandonment of the children. Morally they should grow further, right. So that is how article number 39 is, right. And see, once you have LOC, right, and primary health center, okay, so once you have this livelihood, right, and then you have concentration and also so control and ownership, and then the concentration and the pay, and then the health and the children. Once you have this, but if you do not get this, then you have to go to article number 39A. See, this is just a way to remember. These are not justifiable, but just to remember what was the article number. There is a provision of free legal aid. Okay, now this concept of free legal aid has almost come as a concept of fundamental right under article 21 because of the interpretation of it by the Supreme Court. Okay, then comes after that article number 40. You have to remember somehow. Okay, the whatever you can, like 40 is the villagers, okay, 40 is in the panchayat. Okay, somehow you have to relate it with. I could not really come up with a formula for this. If you can always put it in the comment section. I'll add a annotation later on for article number 40, right. Okay, so 41 is 40 and 41, right. Once you know there is a 40 panchayat is there, 41 you can remember that the scheme like Narega came under the next article, and that is related to right to your work, your education. Okay, you have right to work, education and public assistance, all the government policies, schemes, all the support for the women, all the social justice scheme, all these things come under article number 41, right, which is about it says that obviously it makes a special mention that of the economic capacity of the state. Remaining within the economic capacity, state shall make endeavor for the development and for provision of right to work, education and public assistance. Okay, for example, old age people, they need a lot of assistance, right. There should be ramps constructed wherever possible. There should be lifts constructed rather than stairs as far as possible. There should be more hospitals, because there is a lot of sickness, and there should be other things for the disabled people, right. All those things are coming right out of article 41. Okay, so this is how you have to remember, right? And these two again, then it is difficult, 40, 41. So just make a special note of article number 40 and 41. It's pretty simple. After this, all the articles have been made very simple, right? And 48, then comes the 42. So 42 is let me do. 42 let me do. काम कर लूं for Hindi speaking people. काम कर लूं, right? Just for the Hindi speaking people, right? Don't mind the spelling. So it just says that 42 there shall be humane conditions of work for English speaking people. Just remember 42 let me do. What do? You do your work. What kind of work do? You do a work that is humane. So you do what is work, the kind of work that is just and that is humane, and which have humane conditions of work. And then you also get maternity leave there. These days there is also paternity leave, okay, a few weeks, right? So that is how it goes. And then comes 43. 43 means 43 is 42 is let me do. 43 labor is free. Okay, labor is free. 43 labor is free. What do you mean by this? That the labor they should have minimum living wage for their life. Living wage. Okay, living wage, I mean, they should have minimum which way they can maintain a decent standard of living. That is why we have Minimum Wages Act also. Manrega is there, right, on cooperative basis. Like so many things, cottage industry should be promoted. Such things come under living wage. Okay, and once you know 43, you should also know that for labor there is also 43A, through which the government wants to promote the participation of the labor in the management of the industry. Though these are very interrelated. 44s, everyone in the world knows. There's no need of formula for this. This is Uniform Civil Code. Uniform Civil Code basically means, see, for example, at present, for Hindus and for Sikhs, okay, and for Muslims and for so many other religions, right, there are different laws relating to marriage, okay, and divorce, or all those property. Like some laws are different. So this 40 article seeks that there shall be one code for all people. After all, everyone is a citizen of the nation, right? But there is also a lot of opposition by a lot of people that this should not be done, so for various reasons, right? But at present, Goa in India, this is having Uniform Civil Code for all religion. There is just one code, okay. So this is the need of the society. We must rise above our religious things, okay. For some, you can say, no, in our religion marriage happens this way. See, law should have the role of defining the basics. After that, you do whatever you want, okay. That is your personal thing. That is how it is anyway, right? Then comes Article 45. So it is 4, 5, 6. What do you mean by this? Article 45 is a provision that there should a provision for early childhood and education to the children between the ages of for the ages 0 to 6. Okay, so 4, 5, 6, pretty simple. Okay, so 4, 5, 6. And once you have 46, because 45 was, you see, if you don't remember an article, try to recall the article before that. For example, if you don't remember what is 46, think of 45. Now you know that 45 is about education of 0 to 6. So 46 has to also be about education, and this education is for the weaker section, the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribes, and other weaker sections, right? So such things. This is how you remember. अगर आपको 46 याद नहीं हो रहा तो पिछले आर्टिकल के बारे में सोचिए, 45 के बारे में. एंड क्योंकि 45 एजुकेशन, तो 46 एजुकेशन वहां तो बच्चे थे, या SC ST OBC. यू नो दिस थिंग. DPSP के अंदर समवेयर देयर इज अ प्रोविजन, कहीं प्रोविजन है और DPSP में, टू रिमेंबर द बैकवर्ड क्लासेस. सो दिस इज हाउ इट इज. ओके, राइट. And then comes 47. 47 shows you heaven. Okay, shows you heaven. This is for the people. दारू पियो, उन लोगों के लिए है. State shall maintain some, raise the level of nutrition. That is why we have these schemes like weekly iron folic scheme is there. Okay, and adolescent scheme. So many schemes keep on coming. Okay, so state shall endeavor to bring about prohibition of consumption of alcohol, okay, of drinks which are intoxicating, or drugs, right, except for medical purposes. So in this article, what government is saying that for the people who drink lot of alcohol, they should be for them alcohol should be provided. That this is what government is talking over here. Okay, alcohol is bad for health. So this is going, I don't know, somehow I relate this to people who drink alcohol, right? Think of a person who's drunk and bearded and lying on the road and in a very poor condition. So 47 shows you heaven, right? Drugs, for some people it is a heaven, right? So that is Article 47, right? 48 everyone ate. Okay, this is almost like not sounding tambola to me anyway. Now 47 48 everyone ate. What will you eat? You will eat agriculture. Okay, so obviously agriculture produce, and you will also, some of you will eat animals, so animal husbandry. So this article over here, this is talking about agriculture and animal husbandry. It talks about that how state shall take steps to organize and endeavor the furtheration of, or the moderation of, the animal husbandry and the agriculture on the scientific lines. See, details you can always remember, but just to remember article number, this is how it is very easy. Okay, and they should be prohibit the slaughter of cows. Okay, cow slaughter is the aim, right, to ban it. Slaughter of cows and calves, such things should be there, right, and other, not just cows, right, and the calves and other milch animals and the draught cattle, because of economic reason, right. I've already talked to you about this thing in detail, right. There was a this case, Hanif Qureshi case. I hope all of you remember this case, right. So this was there, and draught cattle, such things should be avoided to be from being slaughtered. Okay, so this is how it is. But once you have agriculture, one thing in agriculture, the second thing is 48, article 48A. Now I did not make a formula for this. It's pretty simple actually, because everyone in the world knows this article, though even if you don't, please try to learn this article. This 48 is about the environment. Okay, environment or environment, whatever you want to call it. So protection and improvement of environment and safeguarding of forest and wildlife, right. Environment ko lekar hai ye. The state shall endeavor to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forest and the wildlife of the century, so of the country, right. So there's a government obligation to save the forest and the wildlife because of article number 48. That is how the article number 48A is. Okay, and now after this there's 49 says, 49, the place is mine, ये जगह मेरी है, ये ज़मीन मेरी है, मेरे को वापस दे दो. I mean to say the monuments, okay, and the objects and the places of national importance, they shall be preserved. So this is your fundamental duty, right. Places of national importance. See, most of the answer on DPSP you will clear, you will write them properly once, if you even have read DPSP like 5 or 6 times, you will be through with them, and these things can help you remember all these articles. Okay, article 49, place is mine, right, and so protection of monuments is like this. Okay, and so state shall have this obligation to protect every monument of the place which is of historic interest or importance. Okay, that ways, right. In fact, the state can also make law for their spoliation. Like a lot of you people go there to Taj Mahal, and some of people have inscribed their name, so that is bad, right. Not at least in Taj Mahal, but then so many other places. And then article 50 and 51, they are pretty much clear. This is about separation of judiciary and executive. Okay, and state shall take steps for this, and this has been motive, right. And this all started legislature and executive and judiciary, the separation of power concept is there, right. And then 51 over here, this is about the international peace and security, and under this article it says that we shall have tried to promote international peace and security, and under this we have so many things being done by the Ministry of External Affairs. Okay, this is how things are going on, and just maintaining good relation between countries and fostering respect for international law, such things. Okay, encourage settlement of international disputes by arbitration, right. And in fact, in this dispute only, right, there was a dispute between India and Bangladesh over the marine water boundary, and it is in the spirit of this this article of the constitution that we will resolve this dispute. Although the judgment was not in favor of India, the judgment was actually a little biased in favor of Bangladesh. It wasn't a very good judgment by the International Court of Arbitration, but even then we accepted it because of our vows to have respect for international law. That is how things are, and in settlement of international dispute through arbitration, in that sense only you can relate things like this. Okay, and now I would like to talk to you. See, these are all the directive principle of state policy I have to talk to you, right. Now these can be classified also in a certain manner, right. And how they can be classified, for example, they can be based on the socialistic line, on the Gandhian line, on the social line, on the international basis, and others. Okay, so we'll talk about all these now. For the first like if I talk to you about socialism, okay, then there is article number 38, 39, 41 and right, 42, 43, and 45 and 46. I hope you remember them all. Okay, 4, 5, 6, this is education. So this is for the backward classes. See, it's so easy to remember all the things over here. I'll just make it easier for you. We will also revise this way all the fundamental directive principle of the state policy. Okay, at 43 now, 43, labor is free, and labor is free. So this is about the labor rights. Okay, about the living wage, right? And then 42, let me do, this is about the work. Okay, just and humane conditions of work. 41 I asked you to remember, and that was about the work education. This is a generalized article. Okay, and 39 I've already talked to you, line of control, public health center, and 38 I said you is a general again. Okay, so these are also related to the socialistic angle of the of our constitution. Okay, then there are so many articles which are based on the Gandhian principles. For example, there is article number 40 and 43 and 47 and 48. Okay, and for article 40, this was about the panchayats. I asked you to remember this, right? And then right, 40 is there, and then 43 is labor is free, right? Or I am free from what? Poor condition of work, free from that is how labor is free, right? And then came 47, see the heaven, it's related to heaven, so it's about alcohol and nutrition, such things, right? And then comes article 48, what did you eat? On you 48, everyone ate, this is about agriculture. So these are all based on Gandhian lines, right? And then comes the next one is on the social integration. Okay, and so right, first was socialistic, this is on the social integration, on those lines. Okay, for example, development of children should be there, that is in 39 clause F, right? I told you LOCPHC, center last word, right? And then this is in the article number 45, 4, 5, 6, in which you have education. वैसे तो परेशान ही कर रहे हैं, aren't they troubling children anyway? I'm just kidding, right? Then 42, article 42, let me do, right? So it talks about humane conditions of work. For example, the pregnant women shall not be forcefully asked to work. They should be given proper rest, those ways. Okay, and then on the social integration lines, we have uniform civil code, right? And then for the 4, 5, 6, but I do not remember 46, so I look at the article number 45. 45 is about 4, 5, 6 about the education. So this one is about the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and other backward classes education. So this is also for social integration. 47, go to heaven, when you don't have alcohol, drugs, there is there's unity, right? Regarding international affairs, there is already article 51, I have talked to you. And then finally, there are other articles. For example, there is, like, which we haven't talked over here, like we haven't talked about, 49, right? 49 we did not talk. 49 is about the 49, the places mine, that is the places and the monuments. Okay, and then also protection of wildlife, 48A, and 39A, that is about the your legal aid. Okay, so such things are other articles are over here. Okay, so basically all the DPSPs, they are amplifying the preamble. They give socio-economic justice, right? And they are non-justiciable, as I said, and they are the guidelines for the public policy. That is how it is going on. Okay, but I have a question for you. Are these DPSPs only in the part 4 of the constitution? Actually, you'll find that these directive principles of the state policy, they go beyond the part 4 of the constitution. So I'm going to talk to you about the DPSPs which are outside part 4 of our constitution, right? Let me talk to you about these DPSPs. Okay, so first of all, there is article number 350A. If you have your Bayer Act, you can open it and look into it. It says about that state shall facilitate instruction in the mother tongue. This is important. This can be asked in your paper. Okay, state shall facilitate instruction in mother tongue at the primary stage. Okay, this is for the primary stage of schooling only. This is important, right? Mother tongue at the primary stage to children of for whom? For children of linguistic minority. Okay, linguistic minority. For example, in Punjab, right, people who do not speak Punjabi, they are linguistic minority. Or in whatever state you are, Gujaratis, Marathis, right, all those languages. If you are a linguistic minority, then state has a duty. It is duty bound to facilitate instructions in the mother tongue at the primary stage for the linguistic minority, right? And state has to provide them. So this is 350. This is outside directive principle of state policy, right? And 351 is about the spread of the Hindi language. Okay, this is there, right? We will not dwell into much. This is not of much importance as such. Okay, and then 355 article is there. This is part of the it puts a duty because we are talking about the duties of the state. So it puts a duty on the state to protect the protect India and the states from two things. One is the external aggression. This is part of the part on the emergency actually. Okay, the state has a duty to protect from external aggression and internal disturbance. I will talk about these terms in detail when I talk to you about the emergency provisions. That will be done in one of the lectures, right? And finally, there is article number 335 which talks about the maintenance of maintenance of what is this called minimum standards while giving reservation to the people. Okay, so this becomes very important article. Okay, so that is how it is, right? And then after, so this is the main thing, right? And then after this implementation of DPSPs. Okay, so I've talked to you about the implementation of DPSPs, right? Nothing much to go into detail, right? But then state government through various Supreme Court judgments, as I said, various things have been implemented, right? That is already done. Okay, implementation of FRs. Now there is some little observation about the interlinking. Okay, about the various DPSPs, and what is that, we will talk about that. Okay, so observations about the linking of the DPSPs, we'll talk about that. First of all, if you remember article 48, this is about environment. And then if you then we'll read about fundamental duties also. There you will find there's a fundamental duty number G. I will help you remember all the fundamental duties as far as possible. Okay, if you have any formula, please suggest the formula, because then I will like to put it in the lecture. I'll add that as an annotation, or I would speak it out. Okay, so 51AG is also about duty to protect the environment, and then article 21 is also about the environment, right? If you mention in your paper things like this will really help you. Then article number 41 is there, right? I hope you remember 41 is a generalized provision, right? As I told you, right to work, and this also talks about education, right? And then there is article 45, 4, 5, 6, so 0 to 6 education के लिए होता है. Then article 51 clause A sub clause K, 51A sub clause K, this talks about duty of the parent to send their child for education. Okay, so this is again about education. And then article number 21A, that is already about education, about this. Okay, so all this way we see interrelation being between directive principle of state policy, and then between the fundamental rights, and then also about the fundamental duties. This is how there is a trinity of being happening over here. Okay, so that was all about the fundamental duties and the relation with their directive principle. We'll talk about fundamental duties in the next chapter. Okay, and then and overall this is about the directive principle of state policy. So that was all about today's lecture, and now just wanted to make two very important announcements. And the first thing is that I just wanted to thank you all whosoever you have shared my videos on various social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus, everywhere. Thank you so much from my heart, and it is my humble request that you please keep on sharing this video in future also. जिन्होंने आज तक नहीं share की, if you really like the video, it's my humble request, please share it with others. That gives me encouragement to make better videos and ज़्यादा videos, and I can cover ज़्यादा subject अगर आप इस वीडियो को share करते हैं. And second thing is that this is for your own benefit. If you really like these videos and you want that updates about the new videos should come into your mailbox, you can subscribe to us. You can see the subscribe button over here. You can click on us and videos will come right into your email box. आप हमें subscribe कर सकते हैं. अगर ऐसा करते हैं तो videos directly आपके mail box में आ जाएंगी. बस इतना ही कहना है. That is all, and thank you for watching the videos.